Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back. Welcome to the Geeks Noobs Podcast. It is me, SuperBeard Vince Hoover, joined, as always, by Kel McCosplay. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it has been a long hiatus. I know this is a new time. Everything is weird and flipped upside down. It's almost like we're in Stranger Things, but it's fine. Everything's going to be great. There's going to be a lot of new changes coming up. We're going to keep evolving this show and making it even better for you guys. So but we are back. We're back. We're back. We're back. Right now, what you see, the layout, I know it says Wednesdays on the screen. I haven't changed that yet. Starting next week, we'll have a new layout. We'll have a new look. We'll have some new logos, the whole nine. As always, if you can, if you're following this on Twitch, please hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. At least hit the follow button. I would appreciate that. If you're on YouTube, welcome. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you know every time we go live. Kel, how are you doing, sir? Long time no see.
Vince, I am doing great, and I'm glad you're doing well as yourself. We talked a little bit before show about things going on and everything like that, but, other than I probably need a raise, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I don't even work, and I need a raise.
Right.
Yeah, like, trust me, even my pension ain't cutting it no more. Welcome to the real world and inflation and stupid. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to keep the show positive. Just a quick heads up. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of changes coming up starting next week. We're going to start adding some segments in, like breaking news segments where we're going to talk about the latest news, similar to like what's going on with we got a lot of Black Panther 2 news here recently, stuff like that. So we'll cover that stuff at the top of the show starting next week. Excuse me. We're also going to discuss different things. We're going to try out some different segments, see what you guys like, what you don't like. Segments like debunking toxicity, where we take a look at a toxic video on TikTok or YouTube and we break it down as to why it's just dumb and it's not necessary. We're also going to consider, they just opened up a brand new comic book shop near my house, which is great because the only other one was like 50 miles away. So I can start getting comic books again. So, and with new Comics Wednesdays coming out, we're going to steal a segment from one of my favorite podcasts, The Weekly Planet, and do what are you reading this week? So, some of the stuff we're going to be doing and whatnot. Now, this week, we are going to discuss the entire Miss Marvel series. The finale was yesterday. For those who want to hear about Thor: Love and Thunder, you can blame Kel for that one because he hasn't seen it yet.
I'm not slacking. I'm just broke.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Blame the economy, which is so prevalently the problem with everything right now.
Exactly.
Hopefully he will get to see it before next week because I do want to dive real deep into it. Plus, I think it just came out this past weekend, giving people, a week and a half to really digest it, because some people, obviously it made a lot of money on its first weekend, but not everybody got to see it. So giving people some time, and I'm going to go see it again this weekend, get some more feel for it. So, yeah. Which, by the way, do you have a Regal Cinema near you?
No, I don't have Regal. I have a AMC.
Ah, okay. AMC's a bit more expensive on their memberships. I was going to suggest because I have a Regal. I go to Regal because I have the unlimited pass for $18 a month. I can see all the movies I want in a month for $18.
Yeah, the closest theater that I have in my town, it's not even a theater, it's a drive-in.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. I love the drive-in.
Yeah,
I've always loved the drive-in.
The biggest problem with the newer cars and everything, the lights stay on, so you can't see the screen hardly.
Oh, yeah.
Because they
you're right.
Hook the sound into
the radios. That's what I love. Because especially with my car, because my car has got like a I think it's a JBL surround sound system in it.
Yeah.
So I get really good sound. And I'm looking to the newer version, the 2022 version of my car, which I'm looking to trade mine in and upgrade, actually has a Bose stereo system in it. Yeah. So drive-throughs would be super fun. But then when you said that, I'm like, oh, you're right. Like the lights, crap. Even if I turn the auto lights off, it doesn't matter. Like it'll still.
Yeah, as long as it's on, the lights are on.
Yeah. Damn. The thing, it's funny because I live in a town that should have drive-throughs. Like I live in a little like almost backwoods country town. Like and there's plenty
Yeah,
of spots for drive-throughs.
yeah,
My dad and I have been like, if we won the lottery, or even like not even like the big lottery, but like we would like you won like the 500,000 or the 1 million one
yeah.
as your take home. We had talked about opening up a drive-in here, just because it makes sense. You put up 4 screens, which again, there's plenty of places for it. You put up 4 screens, you get the system set up, you run like classic movies during the week on 2 of the screens, and you have your big movies on the other, and then like
Yeah.
at nighttime, like early nighttime, you run some classics. Weekends, maybe some matinees or something. But like, yeah, this is like. But now you said that, I'm like, oh crap. Excuse me. But yeah, that would actually be pretty cool though.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was gonna suggest if you had a Regal nearby, because it's like I said, it's only $18 a month. It's unlimited movies. It's also
Yeah.
10% off concessions. WWE and EAW fan, you just got a dancing penguin. Thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good lord, I have got something stuck in the back of my throat. I think it's a piece of lettuce from my Taco Bell today because I eat healthy.
Yeah.
And by healthy, I mean it had lettuce on the taco,
Yeah, exactly.
which I'm not even sure that constitutes as lettuce, but whatever.
So it's a
we'll
lettuce
get there.
substitute.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure it's real,
Yeah.
but regardless. So, now that we got that fun chatter out of the way, like I said, next week is hopefully Kale will sometime this weekend get a chance to go see Thor Love and Thunder. It is well worth the watch. I definitely gave it an 8 out of 10, but there is a lot of how do I put it? There's a lot of like, it's a very divisive movie. I'll just put it that way. Like for some reason, fans are very divided on it, even though like the critics who I don't listen to, they gave it a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the fans gave it's at 85 or 86% audience numbers, which is far more important because they're the people that actually matter. And a lot of people like there's issues and there's certain things coming out and different that. So we'll break it all down next week hopefully. But I personally thought it was a great movie. But speaking of great, and I do mean great, Miss Marvel on Disney Plus. Now, normally we would go these, each episode of the podcast would cover an episode of the show. However, we took a hiatus, and I think it's kind of cool that way because we're going to be able to just break the whole series down instead of getting into minute details that we don't really need to get into. But it also like it's cool because we can look at it and all the theories that were out there. We don't have to speculate. We now have our answers, and I'm just gonna tease it right now. We'll get to it a little bit later, but there's a major revelation at the end of the show that forever changes the entire MCU.
Yeah.
And it's a change that nobody saw coming. I didn't see one theory on this at all. And quite frankly, it blew people's minds. And it also it showed a lot of people's colors too in the fandom. As you guys know, we do our best to fight toxicity and to keep a positive attitude. And this show was very good at weeding out the toxic people in this fandom. Because we had a Pakistani American teenager being a hero. And they called out a lot of these double standards and a lot of these racist overtones and a lot of things in the show. And I thought that was done very tastefully, done very well. And Iman Vellani, this is her first ever role in anything. Her first ever audition was for this show. I don't think there has been... I have never seen a more natural actor in my life.
I totally agree. I mean, for someone that has not had any acting credits up to this point, and this is the show you start out with, she brought it. I mean, she carried the show. I mean, there was no real bad performances, I thought,
No, not at
while
all.
watching it. But she was just so good and so comfortable with this character, and she's just, she. I just thought she was just adorable as Kamala. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just going to come out and say it. I mean, just
yeah,
her mannerisms and her tone was perfect. I mean, I mean, when I first heard that Miss Marvel was going to get a Disney Plus show, I didn't give it much thought because she is a fairly newer character from what I'm used to.
yeah.
I have never read a Miss Marvel comic except for a Spider-Verse tie-in for the comic Spider-Verse that we got a few years ago. That's the only time I've read a Miss Marvel comic, and it was all right. But she's just not a character that I know a lot about. So I didn't know what to expect going in the show, and I'm good with that. But I thought it was really good. I mean, it brought up a lot of social issues that Muslim Americans face today.
That was something great.
Yeah.
Like after that first episode, I just wanted to like stick Iman in my pocket and feed her Skittles. She was so adorable. She was so lovely.
Yes.
Like she just, and I understand that like I can't sit here and say that she's gonna be one of the next greatest actresses. Like she's not gonna be there. I don't know. I just don't know because part of why she was so great in this role is because she absolutely loves this character, and she is a huge comic book nerd. And she, when she was 15, she dressed up as Captain Marvel for Halloween because it's her favorite
Yeah.
character. And she's read every issue. She was very intimate with the character beforehand. Um, so that's a whole nother discussion about acting, about whether like is an actor great or were they just great for one role kind of thing. That's a whole other discussion. And we won't know until we see her in other stuff. But honestly, from her interviews and everything else we've heard from her, I don't know if she'll take other roles. Like legit, like she is so locked in on the MCU. She is so locked in on doing like fulfilling this dream slash fantasy of being this superhero. She's locked in for the long haul. She's going to be around for the next 10 plus years in the MCU. I don't know if she's going to even want to take other roles. Because from what I understand, and I'd have to do a little bit more research to double check this, but from what I understand, she wasn't even like big into acting. She just saw the opportunity for this role and saw the open casting for it, which her aunt sent her. So it wasn't even like she found it, it was sent to her.
Right.
Her aunt found it on Instagram, I think, and Iman at first thought it was fake, but decided to submit anyways. So it's not like I don't know if she was necessarily pursuing acting as a career, but I mean, hell, she's gonna make a fortune at Marvel just doing this role. So why not? I've always been I've always wanted to be an actor. I've always loved acting. I did a lot of plays growing up and stuff, and of course I host this podcast. I've done other stuff like that. I've always loved that kind of stuff. But I've always said that if I ever got cast as a superhero of any kind, I'm good. I can do this for the rest of my life. I don't need any other roles. But I also understand like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans wanting to like, hey, I want to do other things. I want to branch out. I need to step away from this character on a high note.
Yeah.
But like even Chris Hemsworth, who does other roles, who is an actor, who was an actor before, he loves being Thor. And he says that he will do it until Kevin Feige doesn't want him to anymore. So he's not about to just sign out and go home. Like he's not like that wasn't his swan song, so Iman absolutely personifies Kamala. The show is very quirky and fun.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's got like Disney Channel vibes. I'm like, well, yeah, it's a teenager show. Like it's meant to. Like that's who she, the doodles and the animation. I love her YouTube channel, which only has like 5 followers or something. Like all that stuff just brought so much life to that character.
Oh yeah. I mean, and plus you got to realize, this is not Iron Man. This is not Captain America. This is a teenage girl who has been normal. Didn't choose this path. She just found that a piece of jewelry that she thought would look really good with a cosplay and put it on, and it gave her powers. So, this is very Spider-Man like. I mean, I would have to say that Kamala Khan is this generation's Spider-Man, because you get to go on this journey of accidental hero, and you get to go along for the ride.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that in the comics, and you even saw it a bit in the Marvel's Avengers game, Kamala and Spider-Man get along so well.
Yeah.
It's because Peter, now granted, this is an older Peter by the time she's there, but Peter and her, Peter understands where she's coming from. And also, on that same note, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and her get along so well. Because even though he is a little bit older than her, he's still very young. And he obviously relates to her, and they have a lot in common. And I think that the character, and I've not read a lot of Miss Marvel either. I've just read some. And there's a funny thing. Several episodes of the show, there are QR codes throughout the shows. Like, there's this, like, in the background, there's a QR code.
Oh, like
if you scan those QR codes, they're issues of Miss Marvel that you can read, which were great. And then also with Amazon Prime Day, I was able to get a free Amazon Prime book, and I got one, and it was Miss Marvel's, like, it was the beginning of her second big story, like after her origin run. It was basically the first book of the volume 2 of Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
She actually teamed up with Wolverine in it. And it was cool. And it was actually, like, it was cool to see Wolverine immediately take to her. Similar to how he did it to Jubilee in the 90s.
Yeah.
And he immediately saw not only her potential, but her heart. And this particular Wolverine was a Wolverine with no healing factor. This was during that time when he had lost his healing factor after coming back from being encased in adamantium.
Yeah.
So, like, he was, but still, like, very protective of her, very almost fatherly for her. I thought that was great. He vouched for her with other heroes, which I also thought was great. And that's something that I can see going forward with Kamala Khan in the MCU. As the very end post-credit scene alluded to, she will be in the Marvels, the Captain Marvel sequel. I can see Carol Danvers seeing the potential and the true hero inside of her and vouching for her. And Amon really brings that out. Like, it just, like I said, I instantly fell in love with her. Like, it's just, it was hard not to. And throughout the show, even when things got, took a darker, more emotional tone, she nailed that too.
Wholeheartedly.
It was just, there was teenage angst, which we're all familiar with. We all lived it.
Oh yeah.
I don't care who you are, but but more so the people of color who have dealt with not just the teenage angst, but then all the issues that surround that, and the cultural problems, and especially for the Muslim community in New York, New Jersey, that whole area. They've spent the last 20 years dealing with, extended amounts of hatred. I thought a lot of those scenes, like the Moss scenes, damage control, which, by the way, we'll get into it a little bit deeper, but Devers, that agent, one of the worst villains of the MCU.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just absolutely garbage human being, and I'm glad she got fired.
Yes. Fuck that bitch.
Just threw my vaporizer on the floor.
Yeah, that's how pissed off she makes you.
Yeah, bitch. No. Yeah, she's awful. Just straight up awful. And disrespectful, racist, just awful. But I thought there was a lot of characters. Now, one critique I can understand that I've seen, as long as people aren't being assholes about it, and that's the key. The 6-episode model has its flaws.
Mm.
There were some storylines that felt like they just kind of got lost to the wayside. Like her best friend Nakima becoming the head of the board at the mosque. I don't think the head of the board, but part of the board. and then her issue with Kamala not telling her, and then
Yep.
just being gone for an episode. Like it just there were certain things there, um, a lot of unresolved issues, a lot of things that kind of just got like what should have been a storyline kind of gets glossed over for lack of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the one thing I will say, yes, the fifth episode was another flashback episode in a sense because it was a
Mm-hmm.
time travel episode. However, I think structurally this is one of the best shows we've gotten in that um nothing felt like filler. Yes, there were a couple strings that were kind of that should have been traveled that weren't, but for the most part I felt like the story felt fairly consistent. It didn't feel discombobulated. I just felt like structurally it was one of the better shows we've gotten.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with you. The story did not seem like it went off track very much. Like you said, there were a few things is like, well, what about this? And we'll get back to that later, I guess, but whatever. But yeah, the story was pretty consistent for the story that they wanted to tell. And I didn't have a problem, even though I did, like I said before, I'm not a fan up till now, but I understood the story enough to keep me interested in finding out more about her. But all in all, I totally agree. The show was really good. I was not anticipating it. Wasn't really on my watch list, but I ended up watching it anyway because Kevin Feige has me like this.
Yeah.
Because remember, people, in Feige we trust.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I can't wait to see what happens next in the Marvels, and especially when Carol, or rather when Monica Rambeau meets up with Carol again. That's something I really am anticipating to see from
Yeah, that's teased all the way back in
WandaVision.
WandaVision. There was some
Yeah.
tension there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm very curious about that.
So it makes me think, will Kamala act like a bridge between the two? Or, I just wonder, and I can't wait to find out.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually have a reason to be invested in Ms. Marvel 2 or
Absolutely.
Captain Marvel 2. So
I'm one of the few people who actually like that movie. So I was already invested in it.
oh yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not putting the movie down, Captain Marvel down. It just definitely was not my favorite.
Oh no, I definitely wouldn't say favorite, but when you
yeah,
got 24, 25, 26, what are we at? 26 films now? 27? Hold on.
Yeah, they're not all diamonds.
25, 26. We have 28 films now?
Yeah.
Jesus. But no, I another big controversy about this was more so before the show even came out and was not really discussed in a negative fashion after it came out. But people were literally up in arms, ready to protest and riot over the fact that they were changing her powers.
Yeah.
Part of that came from certain content creators basically putting their own opinion out as fact on it. And they called it the Green Lantern construct power, which that's not what she does. No. She's not making constructs. Yes, she makes light bridges for her to travel on, and she makes shields, but her power was obviously still evolving throughout the series. We saw in the final episode, she actually says in Biggin, she does in Biggin. Granted, it is encompassed in the cosmic chrysalis-like power, but her body is still stretched. You can see it.
Yeah.
I, for one, from day one, had no issue with the change in power, mainly because the showrunner, who I'm not even going to attempt to say her name because I'm going to mispronounce it, she is one of the creators of Miss Marvel and a Pakistani American. And she was in charge. She was the showrunner. If she felt it was appropriate to change the powers to fit into a greater story with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then I accept it. And the fact that, what's her name? Grace W. Wilson She was the main writer and other co-creator for Miss Marvel. She's an American woman who has converted to Islam.
Oh,
Um, she actually appears as one of the people doing the TikTok videos in the last episode. Now,
okay.
granted, she very early on was critical of the show and the changes, but the fact that she was on the show and made kind of a funny joke is like, oh, she seems familiar. Like that was the TikTok where it's talking about, oh, this nightlight girl seems familiar to me. Is because that's the character she created. She obviously discussed it with her other creator, and they worked it out. And I think that while her powers look different, it actually proved so because a lot of people's complaint was, well, she used her ability to shapeshift her body into looking like Carol Danvers at first because she didn't think a brown girl could be, which they mentioned in the show, that a brown
Yeah,
girl could be a hero. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a cop out. That's a cop out way of dealing with that. And
yeah.
I think the show dealt with that in a much better way,
Hmm.
in almost a Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1 kind of way, where the city rallied around her. And not just the city, the police,
Yeah.
the JCPD, made up of mostly white guys,
Uh-huh.
immediately took her side. Immediately.
And what a moment.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And
Exactly.
and so like that was a much better way to deal with it, to deal with this, person of color, this woman of color, this young woman of color
Yeah.
dealing with this hatred and racism than just, oh, well, she changed herself to look blonde, but then realized she was better as herself. That's a cop out to me. That's a cop out in writing. And what's funny in the comics, Carol Danvers' association with Miss Marvel is kind of shoehorned in this one
Mhm.
comic. And then that's it. And then, of course, they're
Yeah.
suddenly team members and just, it is what it is. And they kind of ignore the fact that she is an uber fan of Captain Marvel and they just accept that they're teammates. And that whole story just, again, goes the wayside in the comics. She's shoehorned in. Kamala saves the day big time, saving New York and possibly the entire world. Captain Marvel shows up after a cosmic battle, says, hey, good job, kid. You want to patrol around the city a while with me? And they do. And then she's like, all right, peace out. I got another war in the galaxy to go fight.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's just like, And part of that is because, and I apologize, it's been so long since we've done the podcast, I forgot to put my phone on silent. So let me do that. All right. So, yeah, it's just, the change in powers was necessary to fit in the MCU. No, it had nothing to do with Reed Richards or anything like that.
Right.
It had to do with fitting into the bigger story of the Bangle especially. But, and again, I don't want to get to it just yet, but that reveal at the end. But we'll jump actually past that, sticking with the Carol Danvers side of this, and talk about that post-credit scene where Carol shows up.
Yeah.
She shows up in her late 90s, early 2000 version of her costume with the fingerless gloves, and it's red on top with the blue on the bottom. Her arms are showing, and if you look closely, she's got a bracelet on too.
Hmm.
Not exactly the same, but I believe it to be the missing bangle that, and I have to go back, and I meant to do this earlier today, and I forgot to. I want to go back and look at that post-credits or that mid-credit scene from Shang-Chi, because I believe Carol mentioned something about having to go look for something,
Oh, yeah.
to go look for an artifact or look for something along the same lines of what they're talking about with that signal being sent out.
Hmm.
So initially people thought this was a nod to the shapeshifting, like somehow a new power unlocked and she able to change into Carol, but no, this was actually her trading places in the cosmos with Carol, tying into the thing. The bangle, and this has kind of been the common thread, the common theory right now. We still have to say theory because we don't have any confirmation. It's a nega band. Something the original Captain Marvel had. He was stuck in the negative zone, and then Rick Jones would class his nega bands together and trade places with him, bringing Captain Marvel back into the real world to fight. I believe that the band is one half of the nega bands and also connected to the 10 rings.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason I believe that is we see that the first bangle was found on a Kree arm. And I know a lot of people clung to that. It's like, oh, proof that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon. It's the same Kree. First of all you're seeing is his hand. Second off, with that reveal at the end, we now know that Kamala Khan is not an Inhuman.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we'll get to that later because it's
Yeah.
arguably the most important sentence spoken so far in the MCU.
Oh, amen to
and
that.
that is
brother.
not hyperbole.
No.
But
I mean, I can't believe that line, that little tease in the last episode is getting hate, because this is something we've wanted in the MCU since we heard. Well, I'm not going to get into it now. I'm just going to wait and we'll finish this thought later.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But I think that Brie Larson's appearance, which, I mean, Brie looked good, by the way. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that costume that they put her in, I like it the best. It's the best one by far.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm happy they got away from the Karen haircut.
Oh, amen. Oh, my God.
Because even the creator that created that look hates it.
Yeah.
And he said he'd wish they hadn't done it. So like, but this look, I appreciate this look. The fingerless gloves I thought was a great touch.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great tie-in to what's going to happen. Like, obviously, how do you get Kamala Khan into a show that's, because obviously we know Monica at the end of WandaVision is going up into space to meet with Nick Fury.
Mm-hmm.
The Skrull that's disguised as an agent tells her that. So we knew that movie was taking place in space. So how do you get Kamala Khan there? Boom.
Yep.
The nega bands. And I'm going to stick with the nega. I believe it's exactly what they are. And, but you've got this girl who not so rapidly became a hero. Because one of the best parts about this show is you see her struggle. You see her, like, winded. Like, when she's running, like, trying to get her, like, cause she's not a jock. She's not a sports nut. She's not somebody who actively, you know, like, yeah, she rides her bike everywhere, but she's not, like, into any sports or anything that kept herself super active.
Yeah. I mean, and going back to the similarities between Miss Marvel and Spider-Man, you know, just look back at the Sam Raimi movies where Peter gets bit, he does the rest of the thing, Uncle Ben gets killed, and then he's immediately Spider-Man. You know, we never got to see that transition of him learning how to be a hero. Instead of, we just got him as hero Spider-Man. Where Miss Marvel, we saw her progression, which is a much more interesting story to me anyway, because you actually get to see, you know, how they start and how the mistakes they make, how they learn from those mistakes. I mean, just like with comparing it to MCU Spider-Man, Tom Holland, where, you know, he does have his powers already, but we already know that story.
Yeah.
But then they switched it up with, instead of Uncle Ben getting murdered, it's Aunt May in No Way Home. And, you know, that's the moment that most fans realized we got a 3-movie origin story for this version of Spider-Man.
You got a Spider-Man who is far too reliant on others.
Yes.
And especially, you know, Tony Stark.
Uh-huh.
And by the end of that, of No Way Home, we finally got a Spider-Man who is truly going to be his own hero.
Yes.
So you're right. We got a three movie origin arc, in a way, a unique way.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, we got, because even like with Moon Knight, we didn't truly get an origin story. We got flashbacks to the origin.
Yeah.
But he was already Moon Knight when the show started.
Mm-hmm.
And had been Moon Knight for some time.
Yeah, a good amount of time. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, through flashbacks, we got to figure out the origin, kind of like in WandaVision when we had the flashback episode.
Yeah.
You know, but this is really the first one. I mean, maybe Kate Bishop and Hawkeye.
Yeah.
But even then, that was done very quickly.
Yeah, it really was.
This was truly the first one that the entire series is an origin story.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing I'd like to talk about is her family dynamic.
Hmm.
I absolutely love her family.
Oh, yes.
I also appreciate there's a change from the comics, slightly. You saw how her brother kind of picked on her, but he was like in that first episode, like, "Hey, let me go talk to them about getting you to AvengerCon."
Yeah.
It took a very long time in the comic books, a very long time for her brother to even start to be kind of nice to her. He was very mean to her. So that's a change I appreciate. That he was a much more progressive, even though he still was very much deep in his religious roots and his
Mhm.
culture's roots. He was a little bit more progressive about her being her own person. In the comics, he's so deeply rooted in his cultural roots that he does not want her to be her own person, does not want her to do anything but follow the rules, and he's very mean to her for a very long time. So I appreciated that change because Amon was it Amon or Amir? Her brother. Again,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
apologize if I mispronounce anything. Ended up being an exceptional character,
Oh,
just
yeah.
like her father and her mother. Um, Bruno was fantastic. I can't remember the actor's name, but apparently he was on the final list for Spider-Man along with Tom Holland.
Oh, interesting.
Um, I just noticed our screens are a little bit off. I realized I put my hand down. I'm like, why am I touching Kel? Um, our screens are a little bit off though.
It's like, don't touch me there.
Let me fix that while we're talking. But yeah, I thought the family dynamic was great. I thought that there we go. First off, can we talk about how we got not one but two phenomenal dad figures in the MCU finally?
Oh,
In
yeah.
Kamala's father and then her great grandfather. Which, by the way,
Hmm.
I don't know who that actor is. I need to look up his name. The one who plays her great grandfather. That dude deserves every award. Like I
Right.
instantly like this dude could sell me on anything. I was instantly like, this dude's amazing. Like he is a hell of an actor. He's charming. He is sincere. His line delivery is fantastic.
Hmm.
Instantly fell in love with that character too. Uh, Aisha, her great grandmother, also an amazing character. Beautiful woman.
Hmm.
Just heart of gold. Um, and then of course, Maniba, Kamal's mother. You know, at first is the protective mother,
Uh-huh.
and wants to shun her away from her family's history because of her mother and these quote unquote crazy stories.
Right.
But then she's so accepting and so loving, and that was actually done in the comics as well, which I appreciated. But just a wonderful family dynamic, like
Very
full
much.
on family dynamic.
Yeah, that was one thing that really worried me when I first started watching, and you had the stereotypical overprotective mother, and especially with the whole Muslim dynamic. You've seen this in other media how they're overprotective and they're over eccentric and everything like that. But you know, you see that at first, and you're like, okay, I kind of know where this is going. But then she mellows out, and she even says, I'm so protective because I'm just not ready to let you go. And I'm like, damn it, you sold me on you. You're a great character. I love you.
Yeah. And there was a theory I saw today, and I made a stitch on TikTok about it. And could she have powers too? Could Kamala's mother have powers?
Mm,
And I will point to three scenes that were shown in the evidence from the video I got. And in fact, I'm gonna pull it up because I want to give her a shout out. Everybody should go follow her and find her video. Hold on. Do 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 do. Going through my activity. It's around here somewhere. had, since going back to TikTok, I've had a couple videos suddenly just pop off, and I didn't know where that came from.
Right.
Okay, and she is at Suhaila. 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 She's at almost 1,600 followers right now. Let's get her boosted up because she does great content. But her theory specifically on this blew my mind. And she is, it looks like a Muslim woman. And she obviously had great ties to this character. But do you remember, and I believe it's the first episode, when Bruno brings Kamala back to the house and he's like, "Oh, I got to go home." She's like, "Oh, you don't want to stay for dinner?" He's like, "No, I got to go." She's like, "Well, hold on, I'll pack you some food." And not 10 seconds later, she's got a ton of food packed.
Yeah, she had that packed real quick.
And he goes, "How did you do that?" She goes, "Well, that's my secret," and hands him the bag.
Interesting.
Then, what was the other scene? Hold on, I'm just gonna pull up the video real quick.
I think she has powers, specifically super speed, trained with the red fingers, and they've been hinting at it since episode 1. There are 3 scenes that show this, with the third one being the most significant. The first scene is when she's packing food for Bruno to take home, and initially I was going to dismiss it until she said this.
Just stick to the gizmos, beta. This is my secret.
Immigrant moms are quick at packing food for guests, but not that quick. The second scene's also in episode 1, with the Hulk costumes. At first I thought she bought them, but she clearly says, "I made this for you." And they had just agreed to let Kamala go to AdventureCon the night before. Now, I don't sew, but my mom does, and creating 2 pieces like that in one night is not enough time. And the third scene is in episode 5, with the opening of the veil. They cut back and forth between the scenes, with Kamala trying to close the veil, protect everyone, and shield herself and Kareem from the veil, and Muniba worried and trying to reach Kamala. The entire sequence of the veil is about 5 to 10 minutes of runtime, and we see Muniba and Nani at home, and somehow they make it to Kamala just as the veil is closing. And when Muniba does find her, she's not surprised that Kamala has powers. Not to mention Muniba knows about the bangle and its powers, which is why she didn't want Kamala to have it. We know that Kamala's powers come from her and not the bangle, so it stands to reason that Muniba and Sana also have abilities. So how are there?
So the scenes we talked about, one is the food scene. 2, later in the episode, she makes the Hulk costume, the Pakistani-inspired Hulk costume, in a couple hours, and she made 2 of them.
Yeah.
Sewn perfectly, not even like thrown together, like perfectly made. She also made Kamala's final costume at some point very quickly.
Yeah, I haven't even thought about any of that.
And then on top of that, she makes it to the veil in no time. And she's not surprised that Kamala has power. She's not shocked in any way. She also is very aware of what the bangle is and what it means. And like, oh, that's just junk. Get rid of it. Doesn't want her to have any part of it. Her disassociation with her mother, she said it's because her mother told these crazy tales. Because the reality bit is she didn't want to have a part of that life. Because of what it meant to her grandmother.
Yeah.
It ended up with the death of her grandma, or the abandonment. They didn't even know she died, but the abandonment of their grandmother, the isolation of Suna, her mother, from society because of these crazy stories. People looked at her weird, and thus looked at Kamala's mom weird. But does she have super speed? Is she also a mutant? Now, some people have commented that Bruno says he compares her DNA to the rest of the family.
Yeah.
And she's the only one with this difference. And I'm gonna use the term difference for right now.
Yes.
She's the only one with this difference. However, I need to go back and watch it specifically for what he says. Because that conversation starts with the brother asking Bruno if he possibly has latent powers. And he tests the brother's blood. Now, he may have said the rest of the family, but how would he get samples of the rest of the family?
That's true.
So could that have just been a slip of the tongue or a misnomer in the way he spoke? So I need to go back and watch it again. But could Kamala's mother be a speedster?
I mean, with all that evidence, that that girl brought up, there's no reason to think that she's not. I mean, that's some pretty good evidence that she could be or has some type of power.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was pretty amazing. And we know that okay, so let's go ahead and bring it up. I can't talk about it anymore.
So much for keeping it hush.
Yeah. So in that scene, Bruno says that you have a mutation. And at that same time, the X-Men 97 animated series theme plays.
93, sorry.
Or 93.
Yeah.
I keep saying 97 because that's the new show coming out.
Right, yeah.
X-Men 97, which is when that show ended. And they're continuing on. The X-Men 93. So the animated series, we'll just say that. The X-Men animated series, the original series, it's the same theme that played when Professor X drove on screen in Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, and that was such a dream of mine to finally see Patrick Stewart in that yellow helmet chair. Oh,
yeah, it was amazing. But this is the first time that word has been used in the MCU ever. It's the first true introduction to mutants in the MCU. And changing Kamala Khan from an Inhuman to a mutant makes perfect sense to me. A lot of sense. The Inhumans were shoehorned into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and in that really shitty show on ABC because Ike Perlmutter is a piece of shit. I'm not going to go into full detail as to that whole situation. It's a long story. But basically, Kevin Feige had no say in that. He didn't want the Inhumans. Ike Perlmutter was trying to basically get rid of the X-Men altogether in the comics because Fox owned the rights to them for the movies and TV shows.
Right.
So he was trying to make the Inhumans a bigger push. And the thing is, Inhumans and mutants are obviously very similar. The main difference is the Inhuman gene is only unleashed by Terrigen Mist, whereas the mutant gene can be released by puberty, trauma, or an exterior energy source, i.e. the Negaband, the Bengal. Also, for some people, I've noticed that people are like, oh, well, Spider-Man's a mutant and Deadpool's a mutant. No,
they're not.
Spider-Man is a mutate.
Yes.
He did not have the mutant gene. He was mutated by an outside source completely. His DNA was changed by the radioactive spider. He is not a mutant. He is a mutate. They have made this very clear in the comics. Spider-Man has been rejected multiple times from the X-Men. Franklin Richards, also not a mutant. He's just an Omega level being that literally changed reality to the point where people thought he was a mutant for years. Because he wanted to explain his powers away. Yeah. As a young kid, it's all he could do. But regardless, this is obviously again, without hyperbole, the biggest statement made in an MCU series to date.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is bigger than when Nick Fury said we're putting a team together in the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah. By far.
Oh yeah. Because this is something the community has wanted since day one. And now we are finally planting the seeds to get it.
And we've got San Diego Comic-Con coming up. And Marvel's actually returning for the first time in a few years. They will be at Hall H. So we will do our best to cover that on whatever episode falls. Hold on, let me look at the dates real quick.
Okay.
See if we can do that. San Diego Comic-Con. It's the 21st through the 24th. So we're looking at 7 days away. What day is Marvel in Hall C? How to watch Marvel live. Oh, we'll be able to watch it live. Maybe we'll stream it.
Hell yeah.
4 p.m. Eastern on next Thursday. So it'll be over by the time we start the podcast. So what I may do is come in early and just live stream the stream, like co-host the stream here, and then we can discuss it. But apparently they're going to be all 4 days. They're going to have a panel. So they're going to have one Thursday at 4 p.m., Friday 4 p.m., Saturday 4 p.m., and then 11 a.m., or I'm sorry, 2 p.m. on Sunday. Now that's 2 p.m. Eastern time. All the times I listen were Eastern time because Kel and I are both Eastern time.
I'm not.
So.
I'm Central.
Oh, that's right. You're Central. I forgot.
I mean, it's weird. Part of my state is in the eastern.
Yeah,
but
you're on the
where I
western.
live is
You're on the
in
western side of town. That's right.
No.
My bad. So you're central
It's all
time.
right.
So for you, it'll be 3 p.m.
Yeah.
those 3 days, and then 1 p.m. on Sunday. I don't know what day is going to be the big reveal day.
All right.
Oh, hang on. Let me look up, because this looks like that might be the comics. Let me look at Marvel Studios panel. All right, let's look this up. Because again, I want to cover this because one of the things I'm expecting to be mentioned is more talk about mutants in general. Big news this time around. I know they're also gonna be laying out the future of the MCU in total. I can't get a date. Let me see if I actually just go to the SDCC website, which would probably be the smartest thing to do in the first place. All right. Here we go. Program schedule. All right. Let's look at Thursday. Okay, this is not user friendly. As much money as they charge at San Diego Comic-Con, you'd think they'd have a better website. I'm just
That would be
saying.
nice.
I mean, SDCC, if you want to just invite me as press, I'll say your website's great.
Yeah.
Seriously? You're not gonna... let me go here. All right, I'll look it up later. We'll get a better clip on it. By next week, we'll have... Well, next week is when it starts, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
If that Marvel listing is, in fact, the listing for Marvel Studios, then we've got a time for it. Regardless, mutants are coming to the MCU thanks to Kamala Khan, but there's something else that's actually incredibly important about this. Because she ends up being technically the first mutant in the MCU, even though it could be very easily retconned that Wanda and Pietro were also mutants. That can be retconned. It was teased in WandaVision that they had their powers beforehand.
Yes.
So they can easily go back and say, oh, well, they were mutants. But the fact that she is the first one being told that she is a mutant, in no way, shape, or form can you now erase this character from the MCU. As much as a bunch of these pig-headed white nationalist bastards out there on social media are trying to do, Marvel has solidified her in the history of the MCU forever.
Yes.
She is now a foundation member of the MCU. And I love that. Because, again, this show was phenomenal. The character is fantastic. It had some of the best feels. It knew when to be cutesy and fun. It knew when to be emotional and dark. I would have preferred 2 more episodes, but like I said, the 6-episode dynamic is not... It may be something that Marvel needs to go back and look at. But I'm not disappointed. I'm not like... I would have liked to have gotten more, but I don't need it. I still got a complete story out of it.
Exactly.
So, we now know mutants are in the MCU. However, it does kind of bring up an interesting point in the fact that we may never get a traditional X-Men team.
That's true. I didn't think about that, but yeah, you're right.
Because mutants might be handled slightly differently in the MCU, and the fact that puberty doesn't do it, or even if it does, they're able to hide their powers enough that they're not going to make themselves known, and that it requires something more to unlock those powers. Even so much so that, like, Monica Rambeau might technically be a mutant. Because a lot of the theories in WandaVision was that she had latent abilities before she went through that barrier. Now, I think it was the barrier going through multiple times that caused her to have the powers. But it could have also just triggered her abilities. So another interesting note is that there's a lot of chatter, and these are just rumors. Rumors. I got to say that over and over again.
Yeah.
But rumors are that Giancarlo Esposito will be playing the MCU Professor X, which is amazing. That dude's awesome. And instead of trying to find somebody to replace Patrick Stewart, you just go a completely different route.
Yeah.
And that's smart. That's incredibly smart. We've also heard tales of several other actors that are in talks with Marvel, like Ryan Gosling is in talks with Marvel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, he has stated flat out that he wants to be Ghost Rider. He wants to be Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. But there are some other castings as well, some other people, some other big name actors talking with Marvel. There's a lot of stuff coming up. We've got Fantastic Four. Now we've got mutants. There's the chatter still keeps going on about Secret Wars. There was this supposed leak of the post-credit scene for Black Panther 2 with Doctor Doom in it. I don't know how much I believe that because it doesn't look very good. And it's supposedly it's concept art. But Marvel's concept art, they have a whole team that is strictly just concept artists. And so the concept art never looks bad. It looks amazing. Like pieces of art you could sell in a museum amazing. They've never put out this janky stuff. And this is very like, I don't see this being part of that team.
Yeah.
But you never know. Because it was confirmed that Reed Richards' portal he used in Multiverse of Madness was based on Victor Von Doom of that universe's technology. So technically we've had a little Doctor Doom Easter egg in the overarching MCU, but granted it was multiverse. It wasn't, 616. But that's the thing. That's what this door, like the Kamala Khan has opened a door to the mutants, especially. But just to the, like, that was something else that's come up. That a lot of people are like, oh, Phase 4 isn't good. It's not connected. There's no overarching story like in the past.
Yeah.
People are comparing Phase 4 to Phase 3.
Yes.
Where every movie connected to the next. But in Phase 1, besides post-credit scenes with tiny teases of a possible team-up, not an overarching story, just a team-up story, there was no connecting threads in Phase 1.
No.
They just happened to exist in the same universe, and we only knew that because of these post-credit scenes teasing a possible Avengers film. There was no Infinity Saga then. There was no big bad and an ultimate end game, pardon the pun, end game of the story.
Yeah.
It was just, we're going to build these movies. The first 3 films, it was make or break it. If those films if they bombed, the studio was gone.
Yeah.
Hell, the first 2 movies weren't even Marvel Studios. They were Lionsgate and Universal, with Marvel Studios associated.
Yeah.
If the first 3 films had bombed, we wouldn't have anything. So they didn't, like, they wanted to make an interconnected universe, but they had to kind of just like, hey, it's do or die every single movie for right now. So all they built to was an Avengers film.
Yeah.
And we've obviously seen quite a bit of building in the Phase 4. We've built a multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
We've built a connected tissue through these other things. Like, besides Moon Knight, which was on its own,
yes,
what hasn't connected to the outside, to the rest of the universe? More so than what happened in Phase 1.
Mm-hmm.
And Kamala Khan continues that and added a new wrinkle to it, added a new corner to that foundation with mutants.
Exactly. Everybody wants, the next blueprints to the plant, or not even blueprints. I don't even know why I said that, but everybody wants to see the finished house, but we haven't laid the foundation yet for what's coming next. Yes, we have this glorious building that is the Infinity Saga from Phase 1 to 3. But, all the toxic fans, they are ready to put the roof on this thing before we've even laid the foundation.
Yeah. I think the best comparison, the house comparison, is great. Think of the MCU as a cul-de-sac of a brand new neighborhood that's being built. The Infinity Saga is the first house on the cul-de-sac. Now we're building a neighbor's house. Once all these factors are put in place, we're going to have a full neighborhood of houses.
Yeah.
But we have to build them from the ground up each time. And you were told that. You were told that at the last Comic-Con that they were at, that they were starting anew. Well, what's the overarching story? Well, did you know about the Infinity Saga in Phase 1? No. You didn't even really know about it in Phase 2. The Tesseract and the Scepter weren't Infinity Stones. They were retconned into Infinity Stones.
Mm-hmm.
The Tesseract always had the ability to shape time and space. That's what it did, and it's the cosmic cube.
Yeah.
The Infinity Gauntlet was shown in Odin's throne room as an Easter egg, not as a future plan, which is why Hela said fake and knocked it over. Thanos' tease at the end of Avengers was Josh Whedon's call, not Kevin Feige's. And Kevin Feige was planning on using him as a one-off villain in the next Avengers film. Not as the overall big bad. When Josh Whedon put that in, he's like, oh, you know what? That'll tease the next villain for the next team up. And then they realized that they continued planning and they were making money and these were being incredibly successful. It's like, wait, we can do so much more.
Yes.
It also helped that Kevin Feige finally got out from under the thumb of Ike Perlmutter and the Marvel Creative Committee. Because before 2016, Kevin Feige was not actually in charge. He was the figurehead producer. He was not the man in charge. And that's why a lot of people need to realize, like, Kevin Feige had nothing to do with any of the TV shows except for Agent Carter. Kevin Feige didn't want that stuff to connect. He wanted it to be separate. Ike Perlmutter was the one pushing it. Ike Perlmutter said that Black Widow was never going to sell toys. She was nothing but a sex option. She was just there to appease teenage boys.
Yeah.
He said that Black Panther would never work. The Black Panther movie was supposed to be in Phase 1, I believe. If Kevin Feige had his way.
Yeah.
Phase 1 or early Phase 2. We got Black Panther because Kevin Feige was given the reins by Bob Iger. Then CEO of Disney said, you know what? This is toxic. This is stupid. You guys are terrible. Kevin, I trust you. Here are the reins. You now have Marvel Studios. You only report to Alan Horn.
And thank God for that.
Yeah. And then, because all of a sudden you saw this massive swing in success and connectivity and wonderful stories in Phase 2 and the start of Phase 3, by 2019, Ike Perlmutter was ousted completely. He became what they call, it's like CEO ENT. It's basically an honorary title.
Yeah.
Like getting your honorary doctorate, where it's like you're still CEO, but you're not really CEO. You have no control whatsoever. Stan Lee had the same title at Marvel for decades.
Yeah.
And then Kevin Feige was put in charge of all of Marvel Entertainment. In charge of the comics, the toys, the shows, everything. And now that's why we're getting Disney Plus series, and we're finally getting shows that actually connect to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, one gripe I did see, and I can understand where this is coming from, is it feels like we're being bombarded now with a ton of stuff. Because phase 1, we had just the movies, and they were spread out every year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
Now we're getting Disney show after Disney show after Disney show after Disney show, movie after movie after movie after movie. And that is the bane and the dichotomy of success. Because with success, people want more. But then at the same time, you're bombarding them and possibly creating superhero fatigue.
Yeah.
And that's what some people are getting right now, and I understand it. However, for me, being an older gentleman, growing up on comic books at a time when it was never an option to get it on TV, really on TV or anything, you very rarely got movies. All we had was the Superman series with Christopher Reeves. We had, Batman 89 and stuff like that. You had a couple different terrible B-movie versions of stuff.
I remember watching reruns of the 1970s live-action Spider-Man TV show.
Yeah.
On Sci-Fi Channel.
So, it was always like the Wizard Comics magazine.
Yeah.
That had their dream castings every month. And you wanted it, and now that I'm getting it, I couldn't be happier.
Same.
So for me, I'm not getting superhero fatigue, but again, I can understand why some people are.
Yeah. Especially if it's not something they really grew up liking as a young teenager or child or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you can saturate the market.
Yes.
And, for geeks like us, we're in heaven.
Oh, yeah.
But for everyday people that just watch it occasionally just because a friend told them it was good or something like that, and we're like, oh, it's too much, I don't know. So yeah, I get it, but for me, I'm happy as a lark.
Yeah. But I think what helps with that is series like Miss Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was so unique.
Yeah.
It was so different. Just like Moon Knight. Just like Loki. I would definitely say that Falcon and the Winter Soldier was very much an MCU. It was very almost formulaic.
Yeah.
That's the other problem, is that people are like, oh, we need to get rid of the Marvel formula. We need to get away from that. It's becoming repetitive. But then when they get something outside of that formula, they bitch that it's not MCU.
Yeah.
This isn't the MCU, I know. It's like, all right, pick one. Pick one. Damn it.
Yeah.
Stop bitching about it when you're the same person who bitched that they just stick to a formula. They're giving you what you want. You've asked for change. You've asked for something different, and they're giving it to you. We're going to get it again in She-Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
She-Hulk is going to be supposed to be a law comedy. And we're going to see a very, kind of flirtatious and it'll be like Ally McBeal with powers.
Yeah.
That'll be the best way I can put it. We're going to see She-Hulk dating. We're going to see her living her life.
And I know some of the younger viewers are going to be like, Ally who?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, there's a dated reference.
Yeah.
But think of it like...
but really, it's the best one you can compare it to, really.
Yeah, because it's exactly what that was. It was a law comedy.
Yeah.
Think of it as Night Court. No, I'm going way older.
That's even older,
Yeah.
dude.
Well, slightly more modern, kind of a Sex in the City meets superheroes.
Yeah, in a way.
But
yeah.
in a way, but I think that's taking it too far.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be that sexualized. It's not going to be that ditzy and kind of almost reality TV show.
Maybe like Grey's Anatomy, maybe. But set in a courtroom instead of a hospital.
Yeah, maybe that's a better one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, and I do expect Jennifer Walters to break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Because she's actually one of the first comic book characters to actually do it, not Deadpool.
Exactly.
So yeah, we're going to get a lot of different stuff coming up. We're going to, I think that part of the fatigue will go away after what happens at San Diego Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of what they're going to announce. Now, supposedly, the first full trailer for Black Panther 2 will be shown.
Oh, wow. That's going to be big.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have some news on who's going to direct the Fantastic Four film, because John Watts has backed out of that. Which I'm kind of like, I was a little hurt about that, because I love what John Watts has done with Spider-Man, and I thought he'd be able to give it a really good look.
Yeah.
Now, from what I understand with Fantastic Four, and this is again rumors, not confirmed, is that it will be kind of at least beginning. It'll be based in the '60s, and that they're going to get trapped in the quantum zone, which is where that city is in Ant-Man and the Wasp, in the quantum city that's on as Hank Pym is flying through to find his wife. There is a city in the background. So supposedly they're going to be trapped there and then come out in modern times. Almost similar to like the Captain America situation where they're kind of out of time. But they're obviously going to be able to adjust better, especially with Reed, because Reed was probably already having advanced technology beyond the 60s as it was.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's a good chance that Reed Richards invented smartphones in the 60s. So, so it won't be as hard for them, I think. And maybe even in the quantum realm, they have some idea of what's going on the outside. Time works differently there. We know that from Endgame. So who knows? But there should be a lot of stuff coming out. Again, going back to Miss Marvel, the mutant thing. It is rumored, and I can't say confirmed because, again, we can't trust that these so-called concept art leaks are true. But it seems, by all accounts, that we're getting Namor, the Submariner, in Black Panther 2, who is technically Marvel Comics' first mutant. So that can tie in. We've got
Namor. He predates the X-Men by decades.
He's
20 years.
He's technically Marvel's first superhero too.
Yeah, him.
1939, I believe.
Something like that.
I know he predates even Captain America.
Yes.
And
because the original Human Torch, who was a robot, they did a big. They both had their own comics, but then they put them in a battle a few years later, and it was a big seller for them.
Yeah, and then that led to the Defenders, which was Captain America, Human Torch, and Submariner, and Bucky Barnes.
Yeah,
and I believe Sergeant Fury and the Commandos were not like necessarily part of Defenders, but they worked with them a lot. So there's a lot coming up with San Diego Comic-Con, and this show has really laid the groundwork. It gave us something unique. It gave us something fun. Besides maybe some of the minor side threads that didn't really play off, I can't really fault this show in any way, shape, or form. I love this series. Like I said, it's up at the top for me with Loki and Moon Knight. Just a lot of fun.
Okay.
And that's pretty much all I can say. Any final thoughts as we go ahead and start getting ready to wrap this up?
Let's see. I mean, like I was saying before, wasn't a fan of Miss Marvel until this show came out. I think it's great. Can't wait to see where it goes from here. Once again, in Feige, I trust. I will not doubt him. I will not say that he doesn't know what he's doing, because he obviously does, and I have not been disappointed with anything thus far yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So next week's a big week. Again, we got San Diego Comic-Con kicking off next week. Hopefully we'll get some news by Thursday, but also hopefully you'll get to go see Thor: Love and Thunder, so that we can talk about that. Yep. We'll start introducing new segments as well next week, as we discussed. Keep an eye out for that as well. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It was a wonderful, wonderful show. I'm so happy to be back. Miss you guys a lot. Happy to get back to doing this. As you'll see, if you look at the schedule on Twitch, we will be now doing this Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's 5 p.m. Pacific time, and then do the math for all the rest. But we will be every Thursday doing this, covering the news, covering what's latest going on in the comic book world, in the sci-fi world, in the geek world in general. We hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And as always, stay positive and let's eliminate the toxicity. Kel, thank you once again, and I will see you next week, my friend.
All right, see you next week, brother.